Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to our Young and Dynamic session. I'm super excited to welcome all you dynamites and our high life staff and executive connected anywhere and everywhere around the globe. My name is Lisa Roland, and I'll be your host for today. But before we start, I'd like to remind you our housekeeping rules. Make sure you have a notebook and a pen to write on, because leaders everywhere they go with somewhere to write. Make sure you unmute your gadgets, and you're going to make sure you unmute your gadgets. And if you're told to speak, that's where you're going to mute them. The chat box is open for everyone. If you have a question, you can put your question there, and it's going to be checked by our team, and you're going to be answered. For this moment, let me handle this opportunity to Rotundum TC to pray for us.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I shall pray. Thank you, God, for the day, and thank you for this amazing session which is upon us. And I want to thank you for everyone who found their time to connect to this session, and I really hope that we are all going to learn from this session. I want to pray that all of us have eagerness to understand and learn within this session. And as we just are doing, Lord, I just want you to remember each and everyone who is connected today, so that they may be helped by you, and they may be made able by you. And for this session, we just want you to take over, so that nothing goes wrong and nothing gets flowed, and we understand what is going to happen, and we get to take something away from whatever we're going to do. And I want to thank you, God, for this day, and I just hope that we spend the rest of the day well and healthy in the name of Jesus Christ. Back to you, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Rutendo, and I hope this session is going to be great and good. So let me welcome our amazing guests, Mwabile Dube and Abigail Gupo, who are going to facilitate our young and dynamic session. So a brief background, Mwabile Dube is a lawyer, a youth advocate, and a moot court coach. He's a founder and the CEO of the ID Matter Consultancy. And also a brief background for our other guest, Abigail Gupo. She is a Prince 2 certified project manager with an honor degree in civil and water engineering. She serves in a local community by sharing her skills and experiences. Welcome our guests.
Hello, thank you. Welcome everyone.
Yes, thank you for having us. We're looking forward to this session.
So I'd like to give this time to them to take us through their presentations.
Ngobele, do you want to start, or you want to honor ladies?
I'll honor the ladies. I'll honor you today.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm seeing that we have quite an audience. If I'm counting correctly, it's saying that there is about 140 something participants. So I am happy that you're here. Thank you for having me also. I had a very hectic week at work, so I didn't get to prepare much of a slide presentation, but let me see if I can try and share my screen with you so that at least I can show you what I have. Please bear with me. Can you see anything?
At my end, I can see it.
Okay. Confirm that you're seeing a slide that says my Mandela Washington Fellowship experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just have a few slides. First of all, I will speak about who I am. As I've already been introduced, my name is Abigail Gumpo with a P. I always have to emphasize that. I am a silver and water engineer by profession, and I have just about 7 years of work experience. I am a Yali and a Higher Life Foundation alumni. I was a Joshua Light, having been awarded the Joshua Nkomo Scholarship Fund after being the best student in my Tebelele South Province for my O level. So I got my scholarship from there from 2008, and they paid for my tuition up to graduation from NAST. And that was an interesting experience on its own. And I graduated from NAST, and then I started my profession, which has led me to this point now. Currently, I am the projects engineer for the city of Mutare. And I'm also a YouTuber. I always need to mention this because people are like, but you're an engineer, where does YouTube come in? I always say that I believe in the power of visibility. I believe in the power of people seeing themselves represented in someone else who's doing something that might actually inspire them. So that is who I am in a nutshell. I hope that I'll get to share maybe my LinkedIn profile and my YouTube link so that you can get to know me better. But today we are sharing with you what the Mandela Washington Fellowship experience is, really. And I'm sure there'll be a link that will be shared with you that will take you to the Mandela Washington Fellowship website and tell you a better story of what the fellowship is. But me and Ngobile will be sharing the fellowship from our perspective. So just in general, the Mandela Washington Fellowship experience is a flagship program of the United States government under the Young African Leaders Initiative. It was an initiative started by the President Barack Obama when he was still in office. And the idea of the fellowship is to select young African leaders and take them to the United States for a leadership training session, which is 6 weeks long. So they identify leaders who are already doing something in their communities, and they take you to the United States just to capacitate you and also just to have a cultural exchange, first of all, with your peers from across Africa and also with the United States citizens. And one thing to note that people always not pay attention to is the important dates in the Mandela Washington Fellowship application process and the whole system in general. I hope you can still see my screen. So the most important dates would be the application period where it opens. So for this year, it opened in August, on the 15th of August, and is closing on the 12th of September, which is this coming Tuesday. And after the application process has closed, there is a period where they are sifting through your applications, and the semi-finalists will be interviewed from around November to January 2024. And then in March 2024, the applicants are notified of their status. And in May, there's the whole visa application process that starts. And in June, the fellowship will begin. So you'll be in the United States. Usually it's from June to the first week of August. And in general, just in a nutshell, what my Mandela Fellowship experience was like, I met amazing peers from across Sub-Saharan Africa. That was the best part of the fellowship. I was also excited to meet Unmobile because I hadn't met him in quite a few years, but still we're together. I last saw him when we were doing community outreach projects for the Joshua Nkomo Scholarship Fund. So it was exciting meeting him. I met other amazing Zimbabwean fellows who were selected. And part of the experience is, as I mentioned earlier, is a cultural exchange where you speak to other fellows from across Africa and the US citizens, and also you have lectures on leadership. I was in the business leadership track, and I was placed at Rutgers University in the state of New Jersey. So because I was in the state of New Jersey, we had a lot of site visits, we had a lot of lectures, and the fun part was the site visits. And I got to go to New York. I'm sure if you see from my screen, I went to New York City. That's the Statue of Liberty there with me on a Hudson River boat cruise. We also went to a lot of sites actually. Besides New York, we would go to other cities. We went to Audible. I'm sure you know Audible, the company that publishes audiobooks. We spoke to the leaders there. We went to several different other institutions just for cultural exchange and business exchange and investment opportunities and interactions. And then there was the fellowship, the summit in Washington, D.C. And if you can see me there holding my Zim flag, I was so proud of representing Zimbabwe. That was at the fellowship. And on the far right of the screen, this was me posing with my certificate after I got my Mandela Washington Fellowship certificate. And I think my last slide will be on the application tips and tricks. I'll just go through them and then I'll allow Nobile to speak, and then we'll dive into these even more. So as I mentioned, that the application period is about to close. And one of the tips that I always tell people, speaking from experience, when I got elected this year, is it's all about storytelling. We are all already doing something amazing in our spheres in one way or the other. It is all about the power of storytelling. You have to craft your story and have the human element in it on top of the work and your leadership aspirations that you're already engaged in. It's just all about storytelling. And as you apply, make sure that you have keywords in your application. Because I'm a civil and water engineer, keywords that are relevant to me would be your sustainable development goals, your WASH, which is water, sanitation and hygiene, women empowerment, youth development, sustainability, etc., etc. And also, as you're applying, you need to ask for help from the alumni. Just don't ask questions whose answers you can find on the website, because that is, it's off-putting to most of the alumni gang because they are already doing a lot and they are busy. So just make sure that you ask questions specific to you that will help you in your application. And also just take advantage of the information that is available on the Mandela Washington Fellowship portal. And that is that, I guess. And yeah, I'll hand over to Mobile to continue.
Okay, thank you so much, Abigail. Good afternoon, everyone, once again. So I think what I'll do as well is just briefly talk about my experience, as well as my experience in the Joshua Nkomo Scholarship. So for the benefit of those who are not members of the High Life family, so I got into the Joshua Nkomo Scholarship in 2011. That was after I was the first student from Matapelele North to get 15 points. So that's how I got into law school. So during my time in the Joshua Nkomo Scholarship, this is when I developed my passion for community building, because it was, firstly, it was a requirement that, you know, every semester you have something like 4 community building activities that you would have done. But, you know, because of the manner in which, you know, they instilled these values of you know, giving back to the community, the leadership values that they inculcated into us, I went above and beyond. And so I ended up doing community career guidance sessions in underserved communities in more than 1,000 schools across the country. I'm going to talk about that later onwards as to specifically why being part of the High Life Foundation family is actually a privilege. And it's something that is a stepping stone to great opportunities that you're going to get later onwards in life. But, just like Abigail has done, I also want to show some pictures about my experience in the Mandela Washington Fellowship. So just like Abigail, I was also selected under the leadership in business track. That is because I actually do run a business. I run a social enterprise called Ideas Matter Consultancy. So what I do under Ideas Matter Consultancy is that I equip young people and professionals with with essential skills. That's critical thinking and public speaking, etc. So I run projects with institutions like the Oxford and the Cambridge Union. And then last year, we also introduced what is called the moot court, which is a simulation of legal proceedings in court. And so I trained a group of young people, and they became world champions. And they also received recognition from the president. They went to the European moot court and became champions of Europe as well. So these are some of the things that took me to the point where I am right now. Okay. So I'm just going to share my screen as well, just a few pictures, just so that you can get the gist of, my experience during my time in America. Okay. Please confirm if you can see my screen. All right,
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so I was placed at Lehigh University. This was a private university in Pennsylvania. These are some of my fellows from different countries. At the front, in the center, was the president of the university. So, okay, now how do I? Oh yeah. So these were some of people from across Africa that I met, amazing leaders who'd done amazing things in their communities. And we not only just interacted with my fellow Africans, but also interacted with the local community from Pennsylvania. We also did some site visits as well. This was actually one of the activities that we did. We actually did a play, of Sarafina on Nelson Mandela Day. It was quite fun. Took me out of my comfort zone because I actually played Nelson Mandela. We visited different parts of America. This was an art gallery actually, and we got to also do a bit of painting. We interacted with different young people from across the United States. I also got an opportunity to also speak at Studio 7. We visited the United Nations headquarters. We met some really interesting personalities. We got to interact with an African billionaire in the United States, and he gave us like practical tips on how we can not only just make money, but also how to impact our communities. This is something that I learned that I appreciated very much about the fellowship in terms of how it taught me to reevaluate my leadership style. I always had this idea that, a leader is someone who is always at the forefront, hands-on on everything. But then when I was, during my time at Lehigh University, I just learned this very important principle that leaders create leaders, okay? So I got to learn about, about servant leadership. I also got to learn about, also how basically to run a business better. And, during my time as well, we did some community building activities. We visited, a local community center where we got to read to children. We also got to interact with the African-American business community there. So I can say that it was a really great experience. I got to network with a lot of people, and I built some lifelong, lasting relationships with the people that I met there. And basically what I can say about my entire experience is that it opened up my eyes. It opened up my eyes about the potential that Africa as a continent has. Because when you're always in Zimbabwe, when you're in Africa, you always have this perception that maybe we are small. We can't impact the world that much. But during my time there, I got to appreciate a lot of things about our country as well, about Zimbabwe. I got to understand that, in Zimbabwe, there are a lot of people that have a lot of potential. There's a lot of people there's a lot of talent. There's a wealth of talent. One of the people I met told us that, we as Africans, fair and fine, we might always be seeking to travel to the diaspora and everything, or we think that solutions may come from outside. But he was saying that the world is actually going to get its solutions from within Africa. He said, if you look at the trends that are happening nowadays, the world is consuming the majority of its music from Africa. When you talk about Afrobeats, the world is consuming, it's getting its resources for its cell phones, for gold, all of its minerals. The majority of minerals are coming from Africa. And Africa is a growing population. The world is relying on Africa, and also for our intellectual wealth, And so he was saying that, we need to understand that we are the greatest resource, ourselves as young people, and that the continent is relying on us to make changes. And so I took that really quite to heart. And, it made me also think about, how can I make things in my country, even across the African continent, to be much better. So I'm going to be implementing a lot of projects in collaboration with some of my peers from Africa, but also some of the people that I met as well in the United States. So I think Abigail spoke a lot about the application in itself. What I would like to say is that something I just want to share is that I actually thought that I wasn't good enough, essentially, to apply initially. I understand that this might sound like ironic to a lot of people, those who know me quite well in terms of some of the things that I've accomplished. But I met an alumni in Tanzania, interestingly, and he said, no, apply, you actually find out that you're actually overqualified, And, I did apply, and it was interesting to discover that there were some people that had been applying for 5 years and kept getting rejected, and they finally, got admitted into the scholarship. And so during my time during the fellowship, I realized that, there's the High Life Foundation provides a platform and provides, so many opportunities for Capinam scholars, for members of the Joshua Nkomo Scholarship to actually access this type of opportunities. Why? Because one of the things that made my application to be very strong is the community building activities that I was doing, right? So some people just go to university, fair and fine, they might get involved in certain activities, but very few people actually consider doing voluntary work during that time at university or whatever, whether it be a polytechnic or a teacher's college, right? People neglect that. But you'll find that these opportunities will be given to you. Why? Because there's an understanding that there's something you're contributing towards society, towards your community. So you'll find that even on the application in itself, they'll ask you, do you have any experience, volunteer experience? And have you sort of like won any awards in the past, right? And so I was able to use, my experience from when I graduated in 2018. So that's like about 5 years ago, right? And talk about, these specific community building activities that I did, and they considered those things. So there was a value in the things, in the activities that I was doing during my time in the Joshua Nkomo Scholarship. So even those who are not part of the High Life Foundation family, if there's work that you're doing in your community, and it doesn't have to be as amazing maybe as what I had done, but the fact that you have identified a problem within your community and you're taking an initiative and being at the forefront of of implementing some sort of change within your community, that is going to open up opportunities for you. And I want to testify to you that the Nelson Mandela Washington Fellowship is a great opportunity. It's a life-changing opportunity. I can testify of individuals that got funding of up to like $10,000 just as a seed capital for their projects. I can talk of people who got, even there's someone else who I understand is actually in collaborating with some fellowship, because he's planning on building an institution worth about $1.2 million in Rwanda, right? So in life in Zimbabwe, we sometimes usually think that in order for you to do something, you need to know someone, right? And sometimes, it makes you vulnerable to certain things. But let me tell you something that's interesting about the Nelson Mandela Fellowship. When you go there, they know you. They already respect you because they know that you're coming from Africa, not to beg, right? But you're coming from Africa because you've been recognized as a leader. So all those people there are interested in finding out about you, in interacting with you. They want to work with you, right? So we were constantly networking almost every single day with different people that were eager to speak to us. When I'm talking about people, I'm talking about business people. I'm talking about millionaires. I'm talking about politicians. I'm talking about highly influential people, more influential than the people that we would, colloquially call the mbingas, right, in our society. These were people that weren't asking for anything back. These were people that wanted to interact with us because they also want to, be a part of whatever it is that we're doing, the impact that we're doing, the great change that we want to do. And you won't find, it's very rare to be in such a space where you are, appreciated and valued, and people want these amazing people want to interact with you based off on what you are doing as an individual, okay? And in terms of the people that were selected, it wasn't just, business people, teachers as well, musicians, artists, just people from rural communities. All these people were selected. Why? Because they were leaders doing something within their communities. And one of the things that one of the things I noticed, one common thread amongst all of us, was that they identified individuals who, when they went back to Africa, they would use the lessons that they had gained from the fellowship to increase the impact of their work. Okay, so they're not just going, because the United States government invests roughly about $25,000 on each individual. So there is that expectation that whatever you're doing is going to create more value when you go back. Right. I think at this point, I will hand over to Abigail as well to share, some of her insights from the fellowship. And maybe afterwards we can have a question and answer session, because we do want this to be as interactive as possible. We know that you have questions. We know, you have a lot of questions about this particular fellowship. Maybe Abigail, you could start off with the different tracks, because I think maybe we skipped. We just briefly touched on. So maybe if you could talk about the 3 tracks in the fellowship, the age restriction, and some of the requirements. Yeah, information that they find online.
The information is there online, but then we'll just emphasize on it even more, because there's 3 tracks that you can apply to. So there's the leadership in business track, the one that I and Mandela were part of. There's the civic engagement track, and there is the it's called the public what? No?
It's the public management, but
Public management. Yeah, public management is not really available for Zimbabwe, but then in Zim, you are able to apply for the leadership in business track and the civic engagement. So the difference between those 2 tracks basically is that the civic engagement, they select people whose work and whose passions and aspirations are in civic works, like serving communities. So people who are in arts and media and human rights activists and, along those lines. And then the business, the leadership in business track is for people who have businesses that are running. The business can be in anything and about anything and serving the community in any and in every way. However, it is important to note that you can apply, like for example, I mentioned earlier that I'm a civil and water engineer by profession. I don't have a business, but then I applied to the leadership in business track, and I structured my application in a way that demonstrated to the Mandela Washington Fellowship recruitment team that there is value in me being taught business, because one of the things that made me feel like I don't qualify to apply for the fellowship, which is, a sentiment we share with Mobile, is that as a civil engineer, I don't know if there's anyone here who's into STEM, like science, technology, engineering, and maths. When we're in school, we are taught technical skills. Like you're just taught how to be technical. There's no business element that we're taught. So when I applied for the fellowship, I wanted to go interact with other peers who are in business and interact with other amazing business people who are in the United States of America and have them tell their story of how they started out and how we can match sustainable development with sustainable business and social impact. So that was my goal and still is. And also another thing is that is worth mentioning is that, as Mo mentioned earlier, we are amazing as a people, as Zimbabweans, as Africans. And the unfortunate part is because Zimbabwe is marred with a lot of issues, we have a lot of issues as a nation, we tend to have a low self-esteem as a people. And in most cases, we shy away from applying for these opportunities. And so at the end of the day, realize that when we go to these fellowships and these spaces, we present ourselves as inferior. But the amazing part with the Mandela Washington Fellowship experience is that it's an endorsement that validates what you're already doing. So even if you thought that, oh my God, I'm not as great, I'm not doing as amazing as this person and that person, that endorsement, that validation, it will really boost your confidence. And as Mo mentioned earlier, the fact that we are the High Life Foundation alumni, we're already taught when we're still Joshualites how to present ourselves, how to tell a story, how to marry what we're doing with social impact, because the work that we do, it's beyond you. You're already impacting your community in one way or another, and the fellowship requires that you have a proven track record of leadership. And it's an advantage if you've already been, with this program like the High Life Foundation. And as I mentioned earlier on, the validation and the endorsement of the fellowship is amazing. So one of the things that I did, I applied only once also and got admitted. However, in 2020, like the year before I was selected, I saw a friend who, well, not a friend, a colleague who got accepted into the fellowship. So I started following their journey on LinkedIn, on WhatsApp, wherever they would speak, I would follow their journey. And because I saw myself represented in her, it gave me the guts to actually apply for the fellowship. So in 2021, I clicked on the link to the fellowship. I went through the requirements, the eligibility criteria, and I realized that yes, I was already doing the work that I was doing, and technically I qualified for the fellowship. However, I had no social media presence. There was no way I could prove my track record in leadership. So my saying this point is, as a young person, as a Higher Life Foundation alumni, as a member, as whatever you are doing already as a leader, you need to learn how to, as I mentioned earlier, tell your story in a public domain. So I've done campaigns like the LinkedIn campaign, where I try and inspire young people to document your professional journey, your leadership journey, and your aspirations in a public platform, so that when you are competing, because this is a very competitive program, when you are competing to be admitted in such fellowship programs, you already have a presence. You're not just crafting a story last minute, because it's the work that you've been doing and you've documented it in some way, shape, or form. So what I did that first year, I clicked on the website, went through the eligibility criteria, and I marked myself. I went through what is required and I identified what I had and what I did not have. There's an exercise that I always, when I'm having youth training sessions, it's called the traffic light system. So we know our traffic lights, there's the red, there's the amber, there's the green, right? So if you see an opportunity that you want, whether you're applying for a fellowship, you're applying for a job, you're applying for a scholarship, there's a list of requirements that they have. So you self-evaluate yourself. You check of all the things that they require. What do you have? What are you already doing? And what is it that you're qualified for? Those you give yourself a green, it's a go, you're good. And then areas that you know that you have somewhat of an idea, maybe there is a skill that you somewhat have an idea of, or there is community engagement work that you've been doing, but then you're not really sure that is amber because you have an idea, you've been doing bits and pieces of that. So it's a yellow. You can move. And then the red is the stuff that you know you do not have, you have never done, you've never studied, you've never practiced. And that is the stuff that you're supposed to practice and do, so that when the next application period comes, like myself, you're good, you have your ducks in a row, you apply, and by God's grace, you're selected and you qualify. I see there is a hand raised. Blessful Stab. Wait, is it still raised?
Blessful, kindly unmute and ask your question.
Okay, maybe whilst Blissful is connecting, I just want to stress something that Abigail has touched on. The importance of you telling your story, and you telling your story like in a great way. So I think it's I don't want to call it an African thing, maybe it's a Zimbabwean thing, that we have been conditioned to not talk about our achievements, right?
Right. Yeah.
That you think that the moment you start talking about your achievements, you know, you are being boastful. But let me tell you something, Americans are always out there talking about what they have done. You can identify this in their music and everything. That's exactly what you need to do if you're doing these applications. You must sell yourself.
Yeah.
Okay? You have to sell. Do not be humble.
Brag as much as you can.
Exactly. Brag as much as you can about any awards you've done, the number of people that you have impacted. Do not be humble. Okay? Because who else is going to know about what you've done? Right?
Yeah.
They won't know. So this is the perfect, if we ever get this opportunity, talk about everything that you have done. Sell yourself. Okay? Then I also just want to talk about the age limit as well, because I understand that the age limit is 25 to 35. Yeah. So I need you to understand that if right now you are 35 years old, you can still apply, and you can, and you will be in the, if you do get selected, you'll be 36 when the fellowship happens. It's still possible. Then, and if you are younger than 25, it's possible that you can be selected, but that is only if you have like a really amazing, application, very strong application. But even if you don't get selected, still apply the following year. I see that there's a hand from Ephraim. Ephraim, you can ask your question. Is it Ephraim or Ephraim? Ndiku Mwenayo?
Okay. Maybe we can have our MC and our host helping us. Ephraim, can you hear us?
Okay, I see another
Okay,
hand
there's
from
another
Anthony.
hand.
Yes, yeah.
Anthony, maybe you can unmute and ask your question.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
Anthony,
we
we
can.
can hear
Go
you.
ahead.
Okay, so I have two questions. The first one is there a limit to probably the accomplishments that you can put up on your application? I know Q is a debater, and I'm curious. I want to find out if you put up those debate accolades as part of your accomplishments. And then the second one is, what happens? Okay, so if I've started on working on my application, and for some reason I feel like I can't continue anymore, and then I stop, I don't finish the application, does it affect my chances of making it to the fellowship next time around when I decide to probably apply and complete the application? Those are the two questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'll answer the first question. Abigail will take the second one, right?
Yeah.
All right. So in terms of your accomplishment, I really don't think that there is a limit, but because there is a section where they ask you to list the number of awards that you have received in the past, okay? So if you, Anthony, I know you're in the debating community, you know probably from my history, I've won numerous things, but what I just did was just pick the ones that I think that were the most significant, right?
Mm.
Because if you list like, oh, I've won 10 competitions, everyone gets the idea, right? So what I did is I listed the accomplishments that I'd made from debates, from moot court, my coaching career, but as well as the awards that I'd received from my community work. Because I had received some awards from High Life Foundation. I'd received, the Vice Chancellor's Award because of the community building activities that I had been doing. So just to give it a little bit of variety to show that, I have been recognized for some of the work that I have been doing. But nonetheless, if you have like awards from one specific type of activity, there's nothing stopping you from listing all of them. Okay, like I said, do not be humble. Brag as much as you can about everything that you have won. All right, Abigail, over to you.
Yes, I also wanted to emphasize that point. Like, just brag as much as you can. We need to shy away from the imposter syndrome, because that is another thing that usually holds us back, where you're feeling like, oh my God, okay, do I really, can I not? So just brag as much as you can. However, when you're applying, you also need to know that there's sections where they'll ask you a question and then they'll give you a word limit. So if you've been asked a question and you're told to answer in 150 words or in 200 words or in 500 words, make sure that you select information that you're telling a cohesive story. So only select relevant information. So if you have like 10 accolades and awards that you've won in the past, just pick maybe the 5 that speak and feed into an overall story that you're telling for you to make your application powerful. And when it comes to applying and not finishing your application, as I mentioned earlier, the year before last, I did that. I clicked the link, I said apply because I wanted to see the type of questions that they are asking, but then I didn't finish the application, I didn't submit anything. So after the application period closes, your application expires if you do not hit submit, and it does not affect your chances, because I did not even apply, I did not even answer the questions. I just wanted to familiarize myself with the portal, and then the year after that, I applied for the first time and I was selected.
Yeah, and very quickly, I just want to emphasize like how prestigious this fellowship is. This last year, 50,000 people from across, more than 50,000 people actually applied, and only 700 were accepted. So you'll find that the acceptance rate into the fellowship is less than the acceptance rate into Harvard. So what that means is that if on your CV you just list that you are Mandela Washington Fellow, it opens up a lot of employment opportunities. If I would request funding, for different projects and all of that, you are much more likely to get those things more than someone else who doesn't, because you have been, it's a stamp of validation from from the American government, and you are someone extraordinary who is doing extraordinary things. And I want to say that about us Zimbabweans, we are extraordinary people. Why do I say that? Because how many were we, by the way, Abigail, from this particular cohort?
So in Zimbabwe, they only selected 40 of us
40,
nationwide.
right? And then from Nigeria, it was how many?
Oh, Nigeria is the biggest number, but not so different from us.
Exactly.
I think
Something like 50.
Nigeria was 47, I think. And their population is like, I don't know, is it 3-4 times bigger than us?
Exactly. Their population is I think 4 or 5 times bigger than us.
Yeah.
That says something about the quality of the caliber of people that we have within Zimbabwe. Okay. So never ever feel as if you are not you're not good enough for this particular fellowship. Okay, I'm going to give more. Can the MC maybe assist us in terms of like selecting other people who can also ask questions?
I'd like
go ahead.
To announce this again, guys. The chat box is open for us to ask questions. Feel free to ask questions since you have people to help us here and our guests are here. Among the people who raised their hands, let's start with the person who named his device VM Hut. If he's available to ask, kindly unmute and ask your question.
Okay, thank you so much. My question is, for me, I'm someone who is too technical. I do not have experience in writing essays. I'm having challenges. Right now I'm at essay page. I'm struggling to write essays. And my sister is alumni of Women Tech Women. She's pushing me so hard to an extent that I feel like she's giving me a lot of unnecessary pressure. I'm not believing it's not my thing. The reason why is because I do not have experience as much as she has. Me, I do not have experience. With my type of job, I do not have experience. Some of the questions are just saying no, leaving them blank. So do I have the chance to win, or I'm just wasting my time? Maybe I just need to go back and work on getting experience and other things. Then I'll apply maybe some years later, because I'm still 31.
May I answer you on this? One of my fellows that I was with at Rutgers University was from Niger, and she was 23 years old, and she applied for the fellowship when she was studying her final year. So she's graduating in September. She was awarded the fellowship even before she graduated, because it's all about storytelling, guys. I'm telling you, it's all about storytelling. So when she was applying for the fellowship, she cited her dissertation, like her final year project, and she said that she was studying a program in project management, and her final year project was on plastic waste recycling in Niger, because Niger has a problem with plastic waste, as many African countries. And so she just applied using her final year project, and she said that I've done this research, I can do this project after the fellowship, I can impact my community this way. So she had zero work experience, but she got awarded the fellowship, not only because she did not have work experience, but also she was below the age limit, because the age starts from 25 to 35, but then because she knew how to craft her story well, and she had help of another alumni, she got it. So don't sell yourself short. Learn how to tell your story. So maybe highlight, you remember that last session that we had at the summit, the power of storytelling? Maybe points from that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I think, the gist of it essentially is that, like she's saying, right, you need to create a narrative, right, around the work that you're doing. But within the narrative in itself, you need to show that you are solving problems, right? Problems exist. You are doing this to fix the problem. And if you get this opportunity, this is how you're going to solve the problem better. I think those are just the 3 principles that are here for the application. There's a problem that exists within your community. You identified a solution, and you believe that if you get this opportunity, you are going to implement whatever it is that you're doing better, or your work is going to expand. The scope of your impact, right, is going to be greater. I think those are just the 3, 3 things that have to be part of your story. If you just go there and you brag, of course, right? If you just brag, but you're not showing specifically how this opportunity is going to assist you in how it's going to assist you in your work, your application is going to, be given less marks, right? So at the end of the day, just remember that it's not only just about you. Even if when you're talking about yourself, you're talking about yourself in the frame of you being a problem solver. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. And also, look, there's no harm in applying, right? Like, what do you have to lose?
You have nothing to lose. Just apply. Yeah.
Exactly. Never think that you are good. You don't deserve good things in life. Everyone deserves an opportunity, to change the trajectory of their lives.
Yep.
Okay. Never think that you don't deserve good things in life. By all means, even if you don't get accepted, learn, right? Interact with alumni just like ourselves. And then who knows, the second time around, you'll be much more successful. All right. Over to you, MC.
Thank you very much. And I hope it was being answered. I would like to ask if Owen Chamkuza can unmute and ask the question. Owen, please unmute and ask your question. If Owen is not there,
hello,
Panache.
hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Yes,
you.
you can.
Well, I wanted to say I was following through from the beginning to this point, and I realized that we have a lot of our fresh and young graduates who are graduating straight into unemployment, probably, which is not because they lack ideas, but they lack such platforms as these ones. So personally speaking for myself, I have already started the process of applying on the Mandela portal. But I would want to say, if it were possible, I just feel that the session for me was not enough. I did not manage to learn everything that is needed. Please try to share your contacts with us and maybe those who care as well like me, so that we can continue engaging and get the ideas.
Okay, yes, we'll gladly share the hosts of the meeting. They have all of our credentials and our contacts, but also allow me to emphasize this. The closing period for applying this year is on Tuesday. And by Tuesday, I mean, it's what, 2-3 days from now?
Yeah.
So take this with urgency. If you want to submit your application in time, try and force that you submit it Sunday evening, Monday evening, because on Tuesday, the portal will be, everyone will be trying to get their application in on the last minute. So get our contacts from the host and ask away. Ask questions that are as specific as possible, and you are here to help.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
The last person I think can give him to ask a question is Panache. Panache, kindly unmute and ask your question. Panache, please kindly unmute.
Okay, whilst we're waiting for Panache to connect, I just want to say that to those of you who would have already started your applications, I would suggest that, before you submit your applications, download your answers in PDF format and save them, okay? This will help you greatly. In case maybe, if you don't get accepted, at least you can go over your application and see what improvements you can make. But also, if you finish your application before you submit it, you can also send it to us, and we can maybe, give you some guidance on exactly how you can go about your application. That's something that we can do hopefully before Tuesday.
Yeah,
But nonetheless,
hopefully.
what the whole objective of this session is that we also want to speak to someone right now, like you're saying, people are just graduating fresh, they have no jobs, but you were saying that this opportunity doesn't discriminate as long as you can tell your story in the right way and you show the potential that you have to impact your community. Okay. So still, if you want to apply next year, we're hoping that after this session, you start taking the affirmative steps, right? Like what Abigail told you, leaving a digital record of the activities that you're doing. So it's very important for you to start selling yourself right now. If you're doing anything within your community, share your story on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter. This platform are not there just, for gossip or for entertainment. These platforms are, this is some of the ways in which, you can interact with other people from across another continent, right? But based off, the things that the story that you're telling on your social media platform, they can get attracted to you, right?
Yeah.
And your work. So I think it's also it's a very important. I don't know how I can emphasize this enough. Please be careful of what you post on social media, okay? But also, I just want to emphasize that, whatever position you are in life right now, start preparing for your future right now. Okay, it could be the Mandela Washington Fellowship, it could be any other fellowship, but start, wherever you're doing with the objective that you're going to go places in life and you're preparing the groundwork now. Right? Don't just look at, the problems that exist within your country, unemployment this and unemployment that, or that there's other such and such problems. No, think about how you can start to provide solutions, because this fellowship is for solution-oriented people.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's the last bit of advice that I want to give to you.
And just to write on what you just said about social media, be also intentional about who you follow on social media and which organizations you follow, because if you follow me and go somewhere, somehow you'll stumble upon us speaking about our Mandela Washington Fellowship experience. And then you follow someone else, you'll find them talking about the Shivanim Scholarship. And then you research more on that and you'll be inspired about that. You follow someone else on LinkedIn and they are talking about whatever other experience that might interest you. So be very intentional about who you follow on social media. And as I said, I very much believe in the power of visibility and the power of telling your story in the public domain, because I applied because I saw a friend apply. And now that I've gone to the fellowship, I captured my fellowship experience on my YouTube channel. If you search for me on YouTube, you'll find my vlogs, because I love YouTube. For me is a creative outlet because my work is very serious. Like I told you guys, I'm an engineer for a city, so sometimes I need a creative outlet. So I captured my Mandela Washington Fellowship experience in video format. So if you follow such people, they might trigger inspiration in another direction, and be very, very, very intentional on your social media presence. Back to our MC.
Lisa?
Good afternoon. Panache is back now.
Welcome back, Panache. You can ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Johnson Panache Pemiwa. I have 8 questions, but I'll just ask 2, the most important one. Okay, because of our time. All right, so I was just actually looking at the application form, and then I noticed that, like, for questions where you need to put 100 words, like for example, community and volunteer, you can, and then the next question will be talking about your awards or honors. You can be awarded like for your volunteering work, and then you also needed to explain about that award in 100 words. But you can, how do you then now describe the events in a way you're avoiding telling like the same story. I don't know if you're getting what I'm saying. Where, let's say I have an award for community work, I need to describe using that, I need to describe the community using like 100 words, and also the same award for the community, 100 words. How can you now differentiate it? How can you tell your story when it is linked, like when you have two things that are, talking about the same thing? And then also my question also goes back, in the same line. I also want to ask about, let's say, you're now talking about like those personal essays, you can talk about your experience as community. Are you allowed to take a certain event, over your volunteering experience, but also you would have talked about it, previously? And also my last question, what advice do you give a young man who's 22 years, who's left with 3 days to finish the essays? What should he start doing right now? And also in terms of help, help is broad. Like, is it like you just look at the question and then you say, go back and do this, or you just want to do like the final, like the proofread of the application? So thank you very much for this opportunity to ask you questions.
Okay, Panashe, in terms of your first question about, how you don't want to sound repetitive, right? In your answers, I think the question is like briefly describe, this award. I'm paraphrasing here.
Mhm.
So I think if you have been winning the same award, right, for multiple times, I'm pretty sure that the work that you're doing might, in a way, have been different. For example, when I was doing, I won the award for community work twice from the Joshua Nkomo Scholarship. And what I can tell you is that there was difference in terms of the scope of my impact from the previous award, right, and the current one. That's one way, right, that I can differentiate to say that, look, when I won it the first time, I impacted 500 people. When I won it the second time, I'd increased my impact, or I'd engaged really underserved communities, like rural communities, where previously I might only have been focusing on urban communities, or I might have, taken my work to really vulnerable individuals, okay, within society. But also, I think that I think you also need to understand that being awarded a scholarship in itself is an award. Okay.
Exactly. I wanted to emphasize that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Because in my application, I mentioned the fact that, look, I was the first person from Mandela North Province to get 15 points. And I did my A-level education in 1 year, right? In one of the most underserved regions in Matabeleland, which is Binga, right? I mentioned all of that, right? But what was the second question again? So maybe, Abika, we can answer the second one. But I'm hoping that I've answered the first part of your question.
Yes, so correct me if I'm wrong, but then your second question was the type and the amount of help that we're willing to offer you guys, since there's only a few days left for the fellowship. Like I mentioned earlier, it will be easy for us to help you if you ask very specific questions to you, not general questions whose answers you can find online. So for example, you can be saying, okay, I do this. How do I craft my story to answer this particular question? So if your question is very specific, it will help. And if you have essays that you have written already, if you have the PDF, we can try and proofread it as fast as we possibly can. Because the unfortunate part is today it's the weekend, so that's why we're able to do this. But Monday is crazy. Like for me, when I get to work on Monday, it's crazy. I won't even get the chance to help you on Monday because, I'll be tied up at work. So if you have started your application and you have very specific questions, you can ask us and we'll be able to help. Send a voice note on WhatsApp, send a message, send whatever it is that you want help with, and then we'll help you on your specific request.
I think you had 3 questions. What was the third one, Panashe?
Panashe, are you still here?
Oh yeah, I'm listening. The third question was the advice for a 22 young men who have 3 days left.
Oh, okay. I think Abigail touched on that, right? Yeah, I think what I would just want to say as well is take this very seriously. You know, sometimes God comes to you in different ways, right?
Mm.
And God could be speaking to you right now, you know, right through this screen, saying that I have an opportunity for you. Take this opportunity, right? Please don't take this lightly. Don't take this particular conversation lightly. You know, I've met so many people, alumni, whose lives have completely changed, right, as a result of this particular fellowship. And I just want to say that for those who always think that, you know, volunteer work is like doesn't pay, I just want to say that, show you that I'm a living testament to that, right? Like I have been to the United States. I've interacted with so many people based off the passion that I have for genuinely changing the lives of other people, right?
Yeah.
So if you have the same passion as well, you will be rewarded for that. But so if you're 22 years old right now, I'm saying to you, go for it. Take this opportunity. There's other people out there who do not have the privilege of knowing about today's session. There's other people out there in rural communities who do not have access to the internet. You are privileged to have this information, and it's being given to you for free.
Yeah.
Information that can change your life. So please take this opportunity. That's the advice I'd say to you.
And also, just to write on what you just said, that you are privileged to be on this platform and have the Wi-Fi, the data to afford to be in this session. So now it's important for all of you guys who are listening to us to play your part, because if you apply and you get this opportunity, next year you'll be speaking to other 200 young people, and impact has a ripple effect. I'm talking to you right now, Mo is talking to you right now. Next year, you will be talking to 100 people, 50 people, 20 people, and our impact will then have a ripple effect to better our communities that we are currently in, and our nation as a whole, and our continent as a whole. And also, I keep emphasizing this, that this opportunity is amazing. Take it very seriously. It's not just a walk in the park. The application process is very rigorous. However, greatness, every great person is just an ordinary person that you know who has been consistent in doing what they are passionate about. Just be consistent in your story, be consistent in what you're doing, and you will reap the rewards and the benefits. Mo and I we've been back in the country for what, like a month now? It's just been a month, right? We've been back in the country for just a month. We have not yet even tested the results of this fellowship, the magnitude of the effects that this fellowship will have in our lives. But then we have stories of other alumni who have gone through this process, and we are excited of the opportunities and, you know, the possibilities that have been presented to us. And we're here to tell you that take up this opportunity, because these opportunities are there for us to take, and your being here, you're getting this opportunity will have a ripple effect, and you impact your family, your community. I'm a girl from Nkulumane, Bulawayo, and I found myself in the United States, in New York, talking to billionaires and millionaires. And that story alone has inspired people that I did not even know that they knew me. So just be serious, take this to heart, and just go for it. Back to you, MC.
Thank you very much for this insightful session. And I hope people learned and you've changed someone's life, which is really great and something that is very impactful. So I'd like to thank you again for this session and this information that you shared with us. And I'd like to give the weekly announcements. The weekly announcements are to like, comment, share for the Young and Dynamic post on Facebook page, and to the SAISA channel to remember to connect anytime to pray for yourself and the country, Zimbabwe. And also a reminder that the applications for Star Leadership Academy are open till the 15th of this month, which means that we're left with only 6 days. Tell anyone from Form 4 or from the age of 15 and 17 to apply. There's still time. See you. Bye.
Bye.